Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Workshop. It is Tuesday, February 13th. And the first thing that reminds me of is we will not, I want to be clear, not be at Dickey's tonight. We are only going to be at Dickey's Barbecue Pit in Rolla on the first and third Tuesdays of the month. And this being the second Tuesday means we will not be there tonight. So just want to be clear about that, but we will be there next Tuesday night, next week. You know, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and Scott's already put out a Valentine's song, and I just don't want to be, outdone by him. So I'm going to put out two Valentine's songs. I'll put out one today and one tomorrow. And, that's because I'm so syrupy sweet. And by the way, if I look like death warmed over today, it's because I pretty much am. I think I slept 3 hours whether I needed it or not last night. I woke up at about 1:30 or a little after 1 and never went back to sleep. So it's just the way it is. And these hands are really stiff and cold this morning, so don't expect much. For those of you keeping track, this is in the key of F. It's got a lot of chords. This is not a simple song. Let's see, it's got F, B flat, C, F, B flat, and C. It's got a D minor and a G. Yeah, it's not a simple song. So here we go. That just means there's just that much more opportunity for me to just hack it up really bad. I ran into her today, not quite by accident. Someone told me where she'd be, so that's where I went. She still looked the same, there was no change that I could see. And then I realized as I watched her, there'd been a change in me. For all at once she's a queen in a dream with a sweet voice calling me baby. And she's got misty eyes, she's the right size, she's the world's most beautiful lady. And I can see her now the way she was all alone. Ain't a woman somebody when she's gone. There was someone else beside me where I used to be. As I watched her hold him close, I thought that could be me. But too late I see love has to be both give and take. And I let her do all the giving. Oh, what a big mistake. And all at once she's a queen in a dream with a sweet voice calling me baby. And she's got misty eyes, she's the right size, she's the world's most beautiful lady. And I can see her now the way she was all alone. Ain't a woman somebody when she's gone. Ain't a woman somebody when she's gone. No fair, Scott put his out in a video so he could edit his. Mine's live. You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. Well, that's all I got right there. Oh, man, that's all I can do this early in the morning. No, I just wanted to tell you that I did put a link to Scott's Valentine song. He did a really nice job on a song, and he did it on that new guitar that he built here in the shop, the Legend of the Dogwood Tree guitar. And so I've got a link in the description of the video here, so be sure to check that out. And as I asked yesterday, be sure to go over there and subscribe, help him out and help him start growing his channel. I would really appreciate it. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the subscribe thing, because some people just aren't, they don't know to subscribe to things and stuff. I get some questions on that, believe it or not, every once in a while. And anyway, the thing is about subscribing, it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't create any problems for you. It doesn't get you any additional spam or anything. It just lets you know, YouTube will let you know often when, or put it in your feed when that person puts out another video. So the worst thing that'll happen is in your YouTube videos, you'll see the next video Scott puts out, you know. So that's all that happens when you subscribe. So do that if you would, please, and help him grow his channel. A&W root beer today. That's the closest thing to beer I ever drink. Let's see. What was I going to go? The title of the video is about the Nashville Number System on the mandolin, and I'm going to show you some more tips and tricks on that and share a little bit with you on that, but we'll get to that in a minute. You know, I mentioned that it was supposed to snow yesterday. Well, as soon as I get done with you guys, and I started working on this fiddle that I'm going to show you here in a second, but as soon as I finished with the fiddle, I walked out the door, and this is what met me in the face. Well, I mentioned to you on Monday's vlog that we were expecting snow, and it was supposed to be 3-inch accumulation. Well, maybe. It's still pretty warm out. I don't think this is going to accumulate. But it sure is coming down heavy anyway. So I guess it was better that I didn't do the trenching job today, that I wait until Wednesday. And that's another sad story is about the trenching job, and I'll tell you about that here in a second too. And I've got a video on that also. Okay, yeah, I did. I worked on the fiddle. You remember yesterday it had a maple bridge or a maple fingerboard. Well, hide glue as it is, you never know how to count on it. I put heat on there, and a lot of heat on there, and it didn't even phase it. Didn't phase it at all. And I mean, I heated up the knife, tried to slide it in there, and got the knife really hot, in fact, and tried to slide it in there. And it wasn't having it. Well, because I wasn't going to save that fingerboard anyway, I just took my finger plane and just planed it off there, and I got it off within 5 minutes. It didn't take long at all. I just planed it off rather than mess with it, you know. Well, then I just to verify that it really was truly hide glue, I went ahead and just got some warm water on a towel and could wash it right off. No problem at all. So it definitely was hide glue. But that's what I'm saying about hide glue's inconsistencies. You just never know if it's going to be hard or soft or easy or just fall apart or take a jackhammer to get it apart. You just never know with hide glue. So anyway, that was the situation on that. And then I knew because of that, I was probably going to have real trouble getting this joint apart because of that same thing. They probably, at the time they glued that fingerboard on, they probably glued this on too, you know. And sure enough, it wasn't having it. I went to this, I drilled a tiny hole down through there and put steam down in there even, and it just wasn't having it. It wasn't coming apart. And sure enough, it was hide glue also. There's no doubt about it. But I guarantee you with Titebond, if I'd have put the steam in there, it would have just fell off. It just would have fallen off. It would have been simple to get apart. So you can say what you want about you can't take Titebond apart, but I'm telling you right now, hide glue is what you can't take apart half the time. I've had more trouble with hide glue than I've ever had with Titebond. Just black and white fact. But anyway, that's where we stand on this. So today, I'm going to clean this neck joint up, and I'm going to set this neck angle at the appropriate height, approximately about there. So it'll be about that high. See, it used to be about right there. It was way low. It was about like that. And so it's going to be about there when I get done. And that'll give a lot more height on your bridge and put more pressure on your top and make this thing, you know, wake up and speak. So that's where I'm headed today on that, is I'm going to get that done. Moving on, let's see. About the trenching. Well, you know, I just saw a video on it just the other day, and the guy says, yeah, you can rent a trencher for about $100 a day, something like that. So I'm thinking, well, that won't be too bad. And the last thing I rented was about $100 for a day or less. I can't remember, but you know, it's been 20 years since I rented anything. Well, sticker shock hit me. So the first place I called was actually the cheapest place, and I thought it was high. It was $200 plus fees and taxes, and they didn't tell me what the fees and taxes were, but I know they nail you kind of on stuff like that these days. So $200 for one day. And then I called another place. I thought, well, I'll check another place. And they said $460. But that was supposedly all inclusive with the fees and taxes, supposedly. But $460 just to run, I don't know, you know, a cable up to the house seemed like a lot to me. I mean, it's not. I mean, if you had to dig it by hand, it's well worth $460 or $200 plus, whatever it turned out to be. But the $200 was a walk behind, by the way, where the other one was a little bigger trencher. In fact, I think I don't know, I can't remember now, but it was bigger. Anyway, I decided I'm just going to trench it with my own backhoe. I can trench it just as fast with that. The only negative is that it cuts a 16-inch wide trench instead of a 4-inch wide trench. And for me, that's not that big a deal. I can fill it back in with my Bobcat, throw a little seed on it, and it's good to go. You know, it's not a big deal. So I'm probably just going to trench it with my backhoe myself. Here's just a little bit of video so you'll understand what I'm up against, because it's not as easy as it sounds. You know, most people think, oh, you just trench, ain't nothing to it. I've done it a million times. Yeah, well, except that you didn't do it here. Plus, the other thing you need to realize is that this ground, you never know what you're going to hit. It can be you can't stick a knife in the ground without hitting a rock. So it can be anything from, you know, pea-sized gravel up to, you know, on average, up to rocks the size of softballs, and occasionally the rocks the size of, you know, giant watermelon or giant pumpkins. I mean, it can be any size rock. So that's what you run into when you start trenching around here. But here is that little video clip. For those of you who've been following along about my idea of running fiber optic cable up to the house, I think I'm going to come out right here, trench along here, because I'm going to build a new foundation right in here, and I'm going to build a building right here. So if I come out this way, trench along here, but I still want to show you some of the problems I have. There's a water line that runs right through here, but I'm going to have to trench very shallow on this. You can see right here, there's a white cap that I've uncovered. That's where it goes down to a shutoff. So I'll have to trench between here and the building here, and trench through here all the way up here. It's quite a ways. And then yet there's more problems. I'll be crossing the water line again in this area, or maybe following it. I'm not really sure. Might be right above it. Can't remember. And I know the water line crosses over the top of this this culvert here. It goes through the road here, and then it goes around the house. But now, then I've got to go through here, and the septic tank is right in here somewhere. So I'm going to have to trench right through here and come up to here, and then look what I've got. You know, there's no way to get up to the house. You can't cross this ditch. So I'm going to have to hand dig all the way up through there, which is probably 60 feet. And then I maybe trench it again from here, from there across the yard up to that big window there is about where I'm going. So this is a big job. It's never easy. My other idea was just to run a conduit pipe up this creek all the way, but I don't like the looks of that, so I don't know what to do. Did you ever hear that it wasn't easy being me? Yeah, I don't know. There's a million ways to do it. I already saw a comment there. Gordon Bartlett says, could you rent a different bucket for your backhoe? Well, I probably could, but the hassle factors is another reason I've decided to just dig it with my own equipment. And the hassle factor is, it's a 40-mile round trip to go get the equipment and another 40-mile round trip to take it back. And honestly, I'm almost positive I can dig the whole length of that trench in the amount of time it would take to do those 2 drives. I'm not kidding. I really think I can, because that backhoe digs fast, especially if you're only digging a foot deep. I can dig and move and dig and move and dig and move, and it digs fast. It's not hard to dig with it at all. And then the other thought I had was even possibly either buying a smaller bucket and waiting till I got that, or actually fabricating my own smaller bucket. And I've thought about that, and I could do it. I mean, I've got the equipment and welders and stuff that I could fabricate a bucket, but I just don't know if it's hardly worth it. I mean, it doesn't really make much difference. You're going to make a mess up through there anyway. It doesn't really matter whether the mess is this wide or the mess is this wide. It really doesn't make much difference. It's still a mess. And I still have to do all that hand digging regardless what I use and how I do it. So I don't know. It's just, I want to get it done. I really want to get it done, but it's just not a simple thing. I mean, if I was just going between here and the barn or something, it'd be a piece of cake. But from here to there is a lot different. There's too many obstacles and problems. Anyway, that's just one of the things that was keeping me up last night. I'm also, another thing that was keeping me up last night was I'm thinking about expanding my capabilities here now that we've got that wonderful viewer sent me this interface and this microphone and stuff. I'm thinking about expanding that some more, and of course that means I'm getting complicated, but I'm thinking about expanding it and being able to do my own recordings again in the computer-based system, computer-based DAW versus my mechanical DAW, because that Roland 2480 is technically a DAW also, but it's it's a physical machine. It's a digital workstation also, and it records on a hard drive inside the machine. But rather than go back to learning all that machine again, which is a big learning curve to get back on to where I feel comfortable with it, why not just go to the modern stuff and learn it this way? I'm actually much better with regular computers than I probably am with that workstation anyway. So I'm thinking about buying I might have to get a different interface actually, because I probably need one with an ADAT, which is a digital audio, I forget the exact meaning, but you can look it up. I mean, anyway, it's got an ADAT port where you can expand it and get more inputs. Like this one would only allow really for one mic input and one electric guitar input. Well, we don't even need the electric guitar input, and you can sort of fake that out and turn that to a mic input too, but it doesn't have the right impedance and stuff, and it doesn't do as well. So I can get an expansion board with the right interface. I can get an expansion board and put in up to 8 mics, or really actually more than that, but all I would need would be about 8 for the band. And then I would just need to learn the software, the digital audio workstation software. And, it sounds simple. There's a little more to it than that even, but it's not too terribly complicated. I kind of understand the technology and stuff, having been around computers forever. So I kind of get it. It's just that I've never done that type of recording before. I was looking at Reaper in case anybody has an idea of which one to get. I think Reaper's probably the best one for me. It's inexpensive, number one, and it seems like it's got everything that you need in a digital audio workstation. Yeah, I know about Pro Tools, and I know about a bunch of the other ones too, but after comparing a bunch of them, I really kind of think Reaper's probably where it's at for me. So if you have a comment about that one way or the other, you go ahead and put that in the comments, but that's kind of the direction I'm leaning right now. And I haven't pulled any triggers yet, but I'm thinking about it. So that was just one more thing keeping me awake. Let's see. I think that covers everything I had here. So, man, we got a lot of comments going on today. A whole lot before we went live. And I do see a person up there that I recognize again as the first one. But first, let's talk about the Nashville Number System a little bit. I'm going to show you this on the mandolin. And I've kind of already touched on almost this exact same thing before, but I thought I'd say it in a little different way, which I think might help some of you on your mandolin. And if you listen to what I tell you, it will also work the same way on a guitar under certain conditions. But it has to be under certain conditions on a guitar. See, the thing on the mandolin, the way I teach it, is you really only have one chord shape, period. It's kind of like a bar chord on a guitar that you can move up and down the neck, and it just stays in the same shape. Well, that's what I do on the mandolin. And now the shape is, unfortunately, it's a little complicated. And a lot of your really good mandolin players out there, they'll use this chord occasionally, but a lot of them use shortcuts and different, easier chords. That's the only negative to my whole thing is, and it really is, I think the only negative is this chord. It's a little hard to do. It's not an easy chord. But, you know, and it's a 4-finger chord. However, so you understand, the root of this chord is those 2 fingers. And anywhere you put those 2 fingers down with a fret between it, anywhere you do it, it's a chord. Doesn't matter where you do it. Any place, that's going to be a chord. It's just learning what the chord is. I mean, any place you do it, it's a chord. So the point is that you can, and somebody asked that they had a problem with their pinky, can they play mandolin without the pinky? Well, yeah, you can really do 3 fingers and do pretty darn good. Now, the 2 fingers, I don't advise trying to learn to play mandolin with just 2 fingers. Technically, you could do it, but with 3 fingers, you can make out pretty good. It's not as good, of course, as if you can do all 4 fingers. You get a much fuller sound. But the point is that I'm going to show you so in other words, I just have this one shape and you move it around on the neck anywhere you want to move it. Okay? And you can make anywhere you move it, you got a chord. It's just learning what the chord is. Now, I say there's only one shape, and that's true. There really is only one shape, but there's 2 different places that you put the shape down, and this first one I'm showing you is the 2 fingers are starting on the bottom 2 strings, and you just slide it up and down the neck. These 2 are on the upper 2 strings. Okay, well, the other way I show you to play the chord is you move it up. So in other words, you're on those bottom 2 strings, now you move it up to the middle 2 strings, and you put this 3rd finger down, but now the little finger has no place to go. So the bottom line is you're still doing the exact same shape, you just don't have a place for this little finger. And in this situation, I don't hit the bottom string. I just hit the top 2 strings. There's advantages to doing it that way. And one of the advantages is you get that deeper sound. You don't hear that little ting. See, mandolins are always tinny, thin sounding anyway. So this way, you don't have that extra little high note ringing, you know, and clouding it up, if you will. So it's kind of an advantage to not hit that little string. So anyway, anywhere you put those 3 fingers, then you got a chord again. So I just wanted to show you that first. So there's really only one chord shape you have to learn to play the mandolin, period. That's all you got to learn. Now, like I said, all the really good players and stuff, they're going to tell you, oh, make your G chord this way, make your E chord that way, and make it this way, and they're all different shapes and stuff, and you can do that. And in fact, I kind of encourage you to do that after you learn my method. Then expand it, you know, go on outside of my method after you learn it. But learn it like I'm showing you, because there's some real advantages to the simplicity and to the understanding of music and to the understanding of the Nashville Number System, which is what makes music make sense. Okay, as far as I'm going to take this today is I'm just going to show you, I'm just going to show you 2 patterns. I've already showed you the one and only chord. There's just one chord, that's it. And then I'm going to show you just 2 patterns. And with just 1 chord and 2 patterns, you can virtually play any song on the planet. It can't get much simpler than that. That's what I'm telling you. It's so simple that it's almost unbelievable, but it's that simple. So now there's 2 patterns. And I'm only going to show you today, I'm not going to give away the whole, training. And I couldn't, oh my goodness, I didn't block off my phone here. So I'm just going to turn it off there, I guess. No. I don't know what happened. I'm just going to turn it down. Anyway, sorry about that. So I'm just going to show you 1 chord, like I showed you, and then 2 different patterns. And I'm only, in the 2 different patterns, I'm only going to show you the 1, 4, 5. I'm not going to show you all the other ones, but if you can expand your imagination out, it all is relative to what I'm showing you here. And it's really, really simple. So I'm going to do this 1, 4, 5. I'm going to explain it like this. We're going to use G as our 1. Whatever key you're playing the song is, that becomes 1 instantly. So G is 1 because we're going to play this song in G. So we're just going to play a 1, 4, 5 song, and this 1, 4, 5 song is what I call the Bluegrass National Anthem. It's bluegrass. It's called the Blue Ridge Cabin Home, and it just goes 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, and that's all it does. It just continues that way. So I'll just show you a little bit of that first, and then I'll explain what I'm trying to point out to you here. There's a well-beaten path on this old mountainside where I wandered when I was a lad. And I wandered alone to the place I call home in those Blue Ridge hills far away. And even the chorus does the same thing. Oh, I love those hills of old Virginia. From those Blue Ridge hills I did roam. When I die, won't you bury me on the mountain, far away in my Blue Ridge mountain home? Okay, it's just 1, 4, 5. 1, 4. Let's go. 1, 1, 1, 1, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 1, 1, 1, and that's just repeats all the time. Now, no big deal right there, but let me show you how that kind of works on the mandolin and why the Nashville Number System, it looks like it was designed on the mandolin to me. So now let's say maybe G is too low for you and you want to move it up to A. All right, well here we're going to start in A. Now A becomes 1. All right, so but before I show you an A, let me go back to G for a second and show you what we were doing there. We're on the bottom 2 fingers are on the bottom 2 strings. These are what I call the chord fingers, so pay attention to these fingers. They're on the bottom 2 strings. We went up to 4, which is the C. This finger has no place to go. Then we move down to the D, which is 2 frets further down. So G, C, D, G, C, D, G, C, D, 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5. So when you move it to A now, you do exactly the same thing. You don't do anything different at all. So we're right here on A. So it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 1, 1, 1. It's the same exact pattern. The patterns, so what I'm showing you is there's just 2 patterns to learn. So this is pattern number 1. All I'm telling you is that the pattern, almost all songs have a 1, 4, 5. So that's why I'm showing you the 1, 4, 5 pattern. This is the first pattern, and then I'm going to show you a 1, 4, 5 in the second pattern. There's only 2 patterns. Once you learn those 2 patterns, there's really not much else to learn. I mean, you got it. It's a piece of cake. There's not much more to it than that. If it's sounding like you're going, I don't get it. I don't see how it could be that easy. It's just that easy. Don't try to read any more into it than that. So it's just 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5. Now, anywhere you put those 2 fingers on the bottom 2 strings, anywhere, your 1 is where you start, your 4 is straight above it. All you do is just go, when I say straight above it, I mean in the same fret. You just go up to the middle 2 strings in the same fret. So 1, 4, 5. 1, 4, 5. Doesn't matter where you do it. You can do it down here. 1, 4, 5. Any place you do that, it's going to be 1, 4, 5. 1, 4, 5. Okay? So that's pattern number 1. Pattern number 2, and by the way, that went what I call counterclockwise. You know, it's a counterclockwise pattern. You go 1, 4, 5, and you're kind of going around the circle this way. Now, when you go to the other pattern, and I'm going to use D as the starting point for this one, D dog. And this pattern goes the opposite way. So we're going to start with, I'm going to do the song in D, if I can sing it there. I guess I can. There's a well-beaten path on this old mountainside where I wandered when I was a lad. And I wandered along to the place I call home in those Blue Ridge hills far away. So it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, back to 1, 1, 1. So it's 1, 4, 5 going the opposite direction when you start on the middle 2 strings. Anywhere you start on the middle 2 strings, you're going to go the opposite direction for your 1, 4, 5. After you learn those 2 patterns, you got it all. I mean, you got it all. You might say, there's no way. I'm telling you, you got it all. There's nothing else to learn. I mean, you got to know what the other chords are, of course. You got to know where your 2 is and your 3 and your 5. But my point is, no matter where you start, everything is relative from where you start. In other words, if you start here, your 4 is right there. If you start right here, your 4 is right there. If you start right here, you know, like your 6 is right here. You know what I mean? Like it's always in the same relative place. Same number of frets away, same direction, but there's just 2 patterns. So you got to learn both patterns and commit those 2 patterns to memory. Once you commit those 2 patterns to memory, you have really learned everything you need to ever know about playing music. It's just practice, repetition, and keeping in time after that. That's really all it amounts to. It seems like it couldn't be that simple, but it is that simple. It really is that simple. And then when you learn those few rules that I wrote about the Nashville Number System, it'll change your world, because you kind of know, even on a song you've never heard before, you kind of already are going to know how to play it based on those rules. Once you learn those 11 rules and commit those 11 rules to memory, it just can't get a whole lot simpler. There's no way you can make music much simpler than what I'm pointing out here. Now, for the people that don't care about mandolin at all, that are on the guitar, effectively the same exact thing works under 2 different conditions. One condition is if you just do bar chords all the time. You could actually do basically the same thing I'm doing. Or the other option is, and it's not quite as realistic, but on bluegrass and country music, it's not that far away from being realistic either. And that is that you always play in G, and then you just move your capo up and down the neck. Now, granted, that's probably not practical. So you'd probably want to have a couple of chords that you play in. Like you either play in G with your capo, or you play in, like, say, C with your capo. That would be fairly practical. And then that way you can get all your chords by just, because the point of that is that your 1, 4, 5 will always be the same while you're in G, and your 1, 4, 5 will always be the same while you're in C, you know. And that's why I'm saying you could basically do the same thing I'm telling you to do right here on the mandolin. You could do it on the guitar under those certain conditions. And, you know, you don't have to use those conditions at all. You can commit the whole thing to memory, but it's just hard to remember. You know, it's just hard to remember all of it. If you shorten it down to either the bar chords or shorten it down to the capo, then you've shortened out a lot of stuff you don't have to know. In other words, you don't have to play in that E position and try to figure out where would the 1, 4, 5 be out of E. You know what I'm saying? You only have to figure it out of G and only have to figure it out of C. So my point is, if you've been struggling with music, that's the kind of approach I would take to figure it out, rather than get so complicated with all the other stuff. Now, if all I've done is confuse everybody, then I probably haven't accomplished my goal, but I hope that makes sense. Let's see what the comments have to say. Let's see here. Gary Hayden was second. Do we even need to bother say who was first? Thomas Armstrong has got some question marks. Good morning, Jerry. Can domestic water be heated from an outdoor furnace? Yes, it can. And they asked me if I wanted to do that. And I said, not in this house, buddy. I said, all I want to do is heat the house. You know, because it keeps me busy. I can't cut enough wood just to heat the house, let alone trying to heat the water on top of it. So I had no desire whatsoever to try to heat the water with my furnace. But even though it can do it, it can definitely do it. I just did not want to spend any more energy than what I'm already spending. Rigor mortis is the name. Good morning. May I sit in? Well, you certainly can. I'm glad to have you here. Hope you're enjoying it so far. If I didn't bore you to tears on that last little example there. Carolyn Fike, and then Gary Hayden again says, Jerry, can you recommend a pickup for a mandolin and how it's installed? Well, I don't have a lot of experience with a lot of different pickups on mandolins. I'll just be honest with you about that. But I have installed the LR bags, and I like it a lot. Now, there is a negative to the LR bags. It kind of clamps onto your mandolin on the sides, kind of like the way a chin rest clamps onto on the back of a violin. But it's getting it adjusted just right. As long as you get it clamped on, and I can't remember exactly how it clamps on now. It's been so long since I did one. But basically, it's just getting it clamped on. It's very easy to install. It's not hard to install at all. But it does sometimes tend to want to work its way loose, I think. I think that's what the problem was with it. I know it had some minor, it's more like a physical problem than it is. Acoustically, it's great. It's a really good pickup. Now, it's expensive. LR bag stuff is expensive, but if I'm got to recommend one, that would be the one I'd recommend because I really like LR bags pickups and stuff. I've used them a lot, installed them for a lot of customers, and everybody I've ever installed one for just raves about it. They love them. So that's it. Now, somebody's, feel free, guys, to put something else in the comments. If you think there's something better, feel free to say so. Moving on down, let's see. Dottie Hildebrand, how are you on this sunny day? Oh, she's talking to Carolyn. I saw the two question marks, and that's why I started reading it. I guess I'm looking for the question marks. I should be looking for them at the beginning of the question. Let's see. There's a longer one here. Michael Peters says, hello, Jerry and everyone. Michael from Arizona. Thanks for the link to stringing guitars yesterday. Eddie and Jerry. Okay, I really like the technique, especially on the tenor side. Okay, well, good. Yeah, I see, that's kind of unusual that you like it better on the tenor side. I actually like the bass side better because it's so fast and easy. And as long as you allow a little bit of there, you can, it's never going to slip on you on the bass side. Now, it might slip if you did the same exact thing on the tenor side. Though it will work if you put enough wraps around it, even on the tenor side. And if you're on stage, that stringing method is a lifesaver. It gets you done in a hurry, Dottie Hildebrand says, how about one of your finest chirps this morning? Well, I don't know if it was one of my finest, but that was a chirp. And that was kind of a Valentine's type song. It's a love song anyway of sorts. Paul Dixon, what do you think happens to nearby glue joints after heating for repairs? Not too much, as long as, as long as you're not overdoing it too much. I don't think you have too much problem. But when you say nearby, how nearby are we talking? Like I'm not worried about anything on that violin when I'm, putting that, when I'm putting the heat and the moisture in here. That's, for me, that's not much of a problem for anything else. So I don't know what you're talking about, but generally speaking, the heat is usually somehow localized. You control it, so it generally doesn't create any problems. There's always exceptions. Bill Webb, each time I restring a classical guitar, I'm even more convinced those things are straight from the pits of Hades. I had two come in yesterday, pain in the buttock. Yeah, I learned how to do it fairly easily. I didn't like it at first, but honestly, it's not that big a deal once you get the hang of it. But I tell you, I'm just not. It's not that I'm not a fan of them. I think they're great guitars. I'm just not a fan of working on them. It wasn't my thing. I wasn't really up on them. So that's why I quit working on classicals. I also quit working on the ovations because they just weren't built standard, and just really hard to hold and clamp and everything. So I just quit working on those two. It just got to be such a pain. I don't know if you've worked on any of those yet, Bill, but those ovations, they'll just eat your lunch. Michael Peters, Jerry, do you recommend putting linseed oil on the body of guitars? I've read articles that say it is bad to do this, but I think I saw a video of yours. Well, I don't know who would have written and said it's bad, because it's not going to hurt anything. I don't typically put linseed oil on a well-finished guitar because there's no point in it, because it's not going to soak in. I only put the linseed oil on things that are in really bad shape for the most part. Like this guitar has been refinished, and it's got a good coat of finish all over it. There's no reason to put linseed oil on this. Now, on the other hand, when you get those violins in here that the finish is all cracked and chipped and, it's down to bare wood in lots of places, linseed oil is your best friend then. So that's when I put linseed oil on, is when you got bare wood. It can be on a bare wood neck, on a neck, or it can be on a fingerboard, it can be on a bridge, anything like that. But I don't typically put it on anything that's got a good finish on it. And it's not because it's bad, it's just because there's no point in it. It won't do anything. Michael Peters, also, how often do you recommend putting linseed oil on fretboards and bridges? I don't have a particular set amount of time or anything, but, once a year is not a bad idea. Maybe twice a year won't hurt nothing. And it won't hurt anything if you do it a little bit more. The trick of anything is on oils like that, is to wipe them dry. Don't leave them, don't leave them puddled up or anything like that. You don't want to do that. You want to just take a cloth and wipe it back down to as dry as you can get it. And sometimes with linseed oil, it's a good idea to come back about another 5 or 10 minutes later and wipe it again, because it will leach back out of the pores sometimes. It just depends on the instrument, but it's not a bad idea to wipe it down a second time a little bit later. Rigor Mortis is asking, Bill, how about, cutting a nut for a 12-string? Yeah, there's a real nightmare right there. I did that too. I built that 12-string for that fella in Scotland, and that deal fell through. But I've built other 12-strings too. I built 2 other 12-strings, so I guess I've actually built 3 of them. And of course, I worked on lots of other ones too. But yeah, putting a nut on any guitar is not fun. That's a hard job to do it well. It's one of the harder jobs, really. Moving on down. Let's see. After we went live, Lucy Girl looks like. Good morning. Well, good morning to you. And Bill Rhodes is there from Warrenton. And let's move on down. Is there any? Whoops! It popped. It scrolled the whole page. Bill Webb says you did a fine job on the song. Well, thank you. Dang, I just checked and was unsubscribed from your channel again. Well, doggone it. Let that be a lesson to everybody. Check and make sure you're still subscribed.
Moving on down, Bill Mumbo, that was a beautiful song. I bet Sue's heart melts like the snow. Does it matter if she's German? See, I'm Italian. You know, by name really is all. That's really all. Just by name, I'm Italian. Is technically according to those genealogy tests or whatever they do, we've got very little Italian in us actually. But Sue's pretty much full-blooded German, and you know, she's not real sentimental. Let's see. Moving on down. Gordon Bartlett says, could you rent a smaller bucket for... Oh, yeah, that was the question I saw before. Yeah. I don't... the renting is the hassle part of it for me, is the drive, 40-mile round trip each way, and got to do it twice. So it's just... that part of it's almost worse than the amount of money. Like the $200, that's not that big a deal. But, the hassle factor of going to get it and bring it back. And then the other liability of it is if you do break something, you just never know. You never know how you're going to be treated if something breaks. Chuck Heidbreder made a 7-inch bucket for my backhoe, just big enough for the boom to get into the trench. Oh, yeah, well, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, I could do that. I mean, I could definitely make one, but I don't know if it's worth it for just this. It's not that I couldn't use it later for other projects too, but on the other hand, though, out here in the country and on this farm and this rocky ground, does it really matter if the ditch is this wide or if it's this wide? It doesn't matter to me. It might matter to other people, but to me, it doesn't really matter. So I think I'm just going to dig it with that and not worry about it. And filling it back in is a piece of cake with the Bobcat. It's just a piece of cake. It takes less time to fill it back in and smooth it out than it did to dig it to begin with. Let's see here. Bill Webb says, the conduit up the creek sounds so much easier. Yeah, it would be easier for sure. I just don't think I like it, though, because that creek can get pretty roaring. I'm worried about that. And then... I don't know, just the looks of it, and I don't know. It's just kind of the halfway to do it, and I don't like to do stuff halfway. But I'm still thinking about it. Gotta fly, Lee. When you put the cable in the trench, will you put it in conduit? Yes, I've already bought I bought 2-inch conduit. Now the cable itself is really tiny. It's not even as big as my little finger. But I bought a 2-inch conduit because I thought when I do it, I think I'm going to pull an extra string through there in case I ever need to pull something else through there. Don't know what that would be, but you never know. Moving on down. Timothy Werblow, like Persona Studio One, and you get a free trial to check it out. Okay. Yeah, I've heard about that one too. I don't know anything about it, to be honest. I don't know anything about really any of them, to be truthful. I know about them, and that's it. I think Reaper also gives you a free trial period. I think it's a month, actually. But anyway. But I've been reading on Reaper, or watching a lot of videos, and lots of people really talk it up. They really think it's good. So they say it's the one that stays up to date most often. They update it more frequently than the other ones, and I don't know. There's 2 or 3 huge benefits that people talk about, and I don't remember what they were right now, but that was one of them. Well, the cost is a major one because it only costs $60 for Reaper, which is really good. And you think, well, it's got to be watered down then. But according to the people that were reviewing it, it has everything that all the other ones have too. So, in fact, there were some cases where they said it actually has more. So, it just, who do you believe, and what do you believe? So, you got to take it all with a grain of salt. I know that. I'm no fool on this stuff. I've been around the block a few times when it comes to software, that's for sure. Joseph Supley, Jerry, just my thoughts. Instead of hand digging the 60 foot or whatever, why not lay that part in the pipe, I guess, in the ditch, and camouflage it with dirt and stones? That would be less backbreaking. Yeah, and that's not a terrible idea. It's not. And I might even consider it. It's just that that ditch is deeper than it might look on that video. It's probably, from the point I was up there, it's probably 5 feet down, or at least 4 feet down. And so you'd have a bend in your conduit and stuff. And so when you're pulling that cable through the conduit, you kind of want to keep your conduit as straight as you can. I mean, it just makes it better. So I don't know. It's not a bad idea. It's not that. And I might even consider it when I get up there and when I get to actually starting to do the work. It might exactly be what I do. It's not a bad idea. Ben Boyd, forgive me if this is an ignorant question, but could you and Oliver plow a trench deep enough for the fiber? If so, it might make an interesting video. It's very possible. It would be better if it were out in a field that had been plowed over the years, because like the ground is softer where it's been plowed over the years than it is like in a place like this where it's pretty rock hard. It would be difficult to plow it the first time, though. Obviously, the old pioneers did that. They had to plow it that first time, But it's possible. The second problem would be that we don't really have a plow that would work very well for that purpose. In fact, I don't think we have one, period, that would work for that purpose. So we'd either have to buy one or make one or something. But it's not a bad idea. It's just that I don't know that it's the most practical for this particular situation. JR might do plowing and things like that with Oliver down the road. You just never know. The Outboard Tinkerer. Jerry, could you possibly run fiber optic cable above ground on poles to the far left side of your property? Yeah, you could. But I don't like the look of that, so probably won't do that either. We've got our electric coming in on poles, but even from the poles to the houses, everything's buried. So, I mean, there is poles, though, on the edge of the property, but it's not a bad idea. It's just that I don't really like the look of that. And it would be easier. There's no question. But I just don't think I want to do that either, unfortunately. And then I'd probably have to buy a UV rated cable for that. I think the cable I've got might be underground cable. I'm not really sure. But regardless, I'm putting it in conduit anyway, so it won't make too much difference. Let's see. Joseph Supley. Or if you insist on hand digging, maybe JR would lend you a hand since you were always helping him. Yeah, good idea. And the likelihood of that is about, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give that about a 2.5. I mean, I'm not saying he wouldn't do it. I'm just saying your chances are about a 2.5. So you can't rule it out. He might help. Russell Allen, have you considered directional boring instead of hand trenching? It's not a bad idea. I just don't think it would work all that well in this kind of ground with all the rock we have and stuff. I actually did that myself, believe it or not, on some water line going under our road, our driveway. I actually, did a directional drilling, made up my own drill head and everything, some pipe and stuff, and and it worked. But we'd have to do have professionals come here and do that, and there's no telling what that would cost. But it's possible. But for 60 feet, that's a long way, and we'd have to have that professionally done. Or if we did it the whole way, it would even be more costly. Gary Hayden says, Jerry, who makes the tailpiece on your mandolin you're using today? Well, this one, I think, is what they call the Monteleone style tailpiece. I think I bought this, originally I bought them somewhere else, I think. But I think maybe I always got them from Stu Mac. I can't remember. But Stu Mac sold them like this. And I think these were like reproductions of the originals or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's a Monteleone style tailpiece, and I'm pretty sure it came from Stu Mac. It's a pretty good tailpiece. It's my second favorite. The tailpiece that I have, it's a guy's name. Can't think of it right now. Anyway, the one I have on my finest mandolin ever built by a human is the tailpiece I really like the best. And I have those engraved with my name on them. But they come out of Oklahoma, Axiom, Axiom Inc., I think, .com, something like that. Axiom Inc., I think, is the website, or you could, can't think of the name of it. Doggone it. Maybe it'll come to me. Moving on down. Let's see. Bo Mumbo. Hi, Jerry. I'm subbed to a channel called John Robson Guitar. I trust him, and he uses Reaper to record his Zoom lessons, etc. Hope that helps. Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, I think Reaper, from what I've seen, I started going a different direction at first. The first review I saw on Reaper was just kind of okay. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just kind of an okay review. But then the more I got into it, the more people were talking it up a lot. So that's where, and plus the cost. I mean, I'm not one to spend a fortune on this. It's not that I'm cheap. I really don't much care to spend the money if I know it's worth the money. But if I can do the same thing for a whole lot less money, then I'll just do it for a whole lot less money. To me, it's just the practicality of it, not the exact dollars amount of it. The dollars doesn't matter that much. It's just more the practicality of it. And, if you can save the money and still be practical and do the same thing, then why not? As long as it doesn't create additional heavy workload, and I don't think it does. I think they said Reaper is very, very customizable too. They said you can make it look like any of the other DAWs. In other words, if you wanted it to look like Pro Tools, I think you can make it look like Pro Tools. So if you were familiar with that one, for instance, since I'm not familiar with any of them, I don't think it matters. Okay, Smith it looks like he's got a question here, but there's no question marks. Smith is the username. It says, I understand what you're saying, Jerry, but when you get in certain bluegrass pieces, they have more than 1, 4, 5. Yeah, well, I'm not trying to explain the whole system today. I'm just trying to show you that there's two patterns. There's one pattern that goes clockwise, and there's one pattern that goes counterclockwise. And that's it. That's all I'm really trying to point out today. That when you learn the mandolin the way I teach it, there's just two patterns, period. Now, you have to learn the other chords. I just want to be clear about that. You still have to learn where your 2 is. You have to learn where your 7 is, your 6 is, and all that. And your 3, you have to learn where all those are. But my point of showing that was that after you learn them like if you learn them in G, well, then you slide down. They're going to be in the same relative place as they were when you were in G by the method I teach you. In other words, like I said, when the G is on the bottom and you just go up 2, you got your C. You slide down 2 more and you got your D. Well, that's the same kind of concept with all the other chords also. But, all I'm showing you is a kind of a very light version of the training that I sell. So anyway, but yeah, what you're saying is true. You definitely got to learn more than 1, 4, 5. Bill Webb, I encourage young folks to learn bar chords. If you can play an E and A chord shape, you can move it up and down the neck. Same with minors and sevenths. Yeah, I don't know bar chords, I'll be honest with you, but I understand the concept and I kind of understand how you do it. I just never have bothered to learn them because I don't really play guitar enough to care. But Timothy Werblow, have the KK Mini on mine and like it. Okay, the KK Mini pickup on your mandolin. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any experience with that one. I just do know for sure that the LR Bags is a good pickup. It sounds really good. That's all I do know for sure. Bill Webb, D, I bet you don't restring your guitar, do you? If you do, how do you feel about the procedure? Okay. I guess they're having their own conversation. Donald Matthews, can you use polywater line on the surface and not trench for the fiber? Well, I guess you could, but I really don't want to leave if I'm understand what you're saying, I don't want to leave the conduit exposed on top of the ground. Sue would kill me if I did that because she likes to cut grass and that would be in the way. But maybe I'm missing your point. Theron Corbett saw a YouTube commercial yesterday for a guitar shop showing how to adjust the action using the truss rod. Oh, what a sad deal. Yeah, it's really sad. There's so many misconceptions about that. I'm not lying to you when I tell you there's millions of people that think that's what the truss rod is for, is to adjust your action. And it's black and white, 100%, not for that. That's not what it's for at all. It's basically to keep your neck straight is really what it's for. And the really, quote unquote, picky musicians have to have that little bit of relief also. Me personally, I just soon leave the relief out of the picture and just have a good flat straight neck. But that's all the truss rod's for, is to keep your neck straight basically, or add or take away a little tiny bit of relief. That's all it's for. It's not for adjusting action at all. Zero, none, not any. Can it affect your action? Sometimes a little bit, but that's not what it's for. Can't say it enough. It's so sad. It's really so sad. It's just so sad that it's not even funny. And that's just the same as the myth about the humidity and stuff. It got started in the 60s and it's just perpetuated and it's just going on forever. And I'm not saying you never need to humidify a guitar. That's not what I've ever said. I've never said that. What I'm saying is it's blown out of proportion beyond belief. It's blown way out of proportion. And I am telling you for black and white certainty, you can do more damage with too much humidity than you can with too little. Guarantee you black and white 100%. That's not a 99.9, just so you understand. Way more damage is caused by too much humidity than too little. But you can't make people believe that because the myth has been perpetuated and it won't go away. I have another story that was keeping me awake that I'm going to tell you guys here in a minute. It's got nothing to do with anything. But I want to tell it to you here as soon as I get through these last few question marks. Yeah, trenchers don't like rocks. Yeah, that's true. And you never know how big the rock's going to be. You just don't know. I mean, you could be just fine all the way up there, and then you could just hit one of those suckers that are like this big around, bigger than a basketball, and that happens a lot here. You just never know when you're going to hit one. Richard Busby, yes, the 145 works exactly how you said on guitar with the E and A shape bar chords. Okay, all right. Yeah, it should work with any, I don't know, like I said, I'm talking outside my experience. I don't know nothing about bar chords, but if you can do any kind of bar chord, it should work the same way. Whether it's E or A or any other kind of bar chord that you could do, it should work. Gordon Bartlett, Bartlett Audio in Weaversville, North Carolina, manufacture a mic that mounts on a mandolin and points to the F hole. It provides a much more natural sound. They work with preamp or work on phantom power. Yeah, I think I've seen those, and I'm sure that would be good too. Yeah, any kind of a microphone type pickup would be excellent. Let's see, Paul Walton, James Tailpiece. That's what the word I was looking for. I just couldn't think of his name. But yeah, the James Tailpiece is a very good tailpiece. Now, it kind of looks like the old Gibson thin stamped out metal tailpiece, the real thin junk. It kind of looks like that, but it's not. It's a machined tailpiece out of solid stock, and it's much more rigid, much more heavy, much more durable. So the James Tailpiece is an incredibly good tailpiece. And like I said, I think it's called Axiom Inc., something like that. Out of Oklahoma is where you get the James Tailpiece. I'm sure you can Google it and find it. Carolyn Fike. And if you do, by the way, tell them Jerry Rosa sent you. I don't know that you'll get a better deal, but you might. You just never know. Carolyn Fike. Hey, folks, there are 100 more people on the live than smash the like button. Come on, press that like button. Yeah, we got 186 on here right now. Moving on down. Chip Wood, what's going to be your average depth of the trench? I'm going to say about a foot. I wouldn't go deeper than 4 inches if it were me. 4 inches is a little light around here because of driving the Bobcat and the tractors and stuff across it all the time. About 12 inches would be real good. I don't want to go any deeper than that, but about 12 inches I'd be real happy with. I'd prefer to go 2 feet, but I know if I went 2 feet through here, I'd hit something for sure. Hagstrom, I can't, there's some username there, IIN, something like that. Can you run your cable from the shop to the house down the road? Maybe. That road's like concrete, man. That would be hard digging. That would even be hard digging on the backhoe. Yeah, that road's packed pretty hard on that rock. It could be done, but then it's a lot further too. And I've only got so much cable. I think I've got plenty of cable, but I don't think I've got enough to go that far around. But even if I did, though, it really wouldn't solve any problem other than maybe not hit something. It might solve that problem. But when I get up there, then I've got the blacktop to deal with because I've got that big blacktop parking lot. And that's why I have to hand trench that one spot because it's a blacktop parking lot on the one side. So either way, I still got a problem. It really is almost impossible. Of course, I could go like you were probably, maybe you were thinking going around the other side, but then I'd have to get back across the ditch. So either way, it's complicated. There ain't nothing simple about it. Really, the simplest way is probably what I showed you. That's really probably by far the simplest. Bill DE is asking Bill Webb something. Maybe that's not for me, so I'll pass that one up. David Tharp, you should only humidify your instrument with hot hide glue, but it only works right when you have the two-way truss rod adjusted the right way. You are a smart aleck, David Tharp. That's funny. James Freestead, Jerry, when I started, that's funny. I'm having trouble composing myself. When I started the mandolin course, I found my new mandolin was a half step low. When I tuned up, I broke a string. The Rosa curse strikes again. Well, yeah, it's, there's a lot of things that depend on that string breaking. If it broke right at your tuning key, it's probably your tuning key itself has got a sharp edge on the hole. A lot of them do that. They do break right there. If it broke at the bridge or saddle, it's probably just that the string was old already and had some rust on it, more than likely at the saddle. If it broke at the nut, might have been pinched. It's the only thing I could think of. If it broke somewhere else, man, it was just time to get a new string. But those are what I just told you about where they break is really some good clues. If it breaks at your peg, if it breaks right at your tuner on your peg, then almost for sure you've got a sharp edge on that peg. And what I do is I take a little tiny round jeweler's file and I just kind of rub the edge of that hole where it broke and try to clean it up a little bit, and soften it. You'd be surprised because they'll break there again if it broke there once. All right. Christy Legger, I think all these guys with ideas should show up on Saturday and give you a hand. Yeah, it's just not easy being me. All right, I want to tell you this stupid story, and I don't know why this came into my head last night. Well, I was laying there not being able to sleep, so everything was running through my head. People multiple times, and mainly because of JR, have asked me, have you seen any Bigfoot? Have you had any experiences? Do you think there's any encounters, anything like that at all? Well, no, and I don't think this story is a Bigfoot story either. But if you wanted to lay it off on Bigfoot, this is probably the best example I can come up with, even better than JR's. But I don't think this was Bigfoot, but I'm still going to tell you the story because I don't know how to explain it. I really don't. I do not know how to explain this. And it really did happen. And it happened to me firsthand. I know for sure, that I'm telling you a 100% true story. Okay, well, that I've told you over the last years that we've had a lot of wild boar here. Well, they came in and killed out most of them, so we don't have any now. I don't even see them anymore. I think it was 2 years ago we killed the last one that we saw. Well, before that, though, there was quite a few of them here. And one day I shot one. It was a pretty big boar. I mean, not huge, but really pretty big. He was probably a 300-plus pounder. I killed one way bigger than that, but this one was probably 300 pounds plus. I'm talking live on the hoof, And so I gutted them, and I started skinning them. And this was the first one that I learned that you cannot skin them from the back down. You got to skin hogs, or at least these big boar hogs. You got to skin them from the head down. You can't skin them from the rear end down. I mean, I'm sure you could, but it's not easy. And the reason is they have this big bony plate, it's not a bone, but it's like heavy, thick, cartilage type plate armor in their shoulder area and right behind their shoulders. And when you're peeling that skin down, it just rolls down and hangs down as you're skinning it, and in the skin, the hide, you pull down the hide, well, it just falls down and hangs. Well, when you get to that spot, it don't hang. It hangs, but you can't pull it down anymore. It won't roll down. It just stays there. And if you start at the head and work the other way, it works better. But anyway, I learned that the hard way because, but anyway, this was one that I started at the tail and went this way. And we cut off a little bit of the meat. We didn't save very much of it. To be honest, we might have saved 15, 20 pounds worth of it. And, maybe the best stuff, the back straps and maybe the tenderloin and some of that. And the rest of it, it was just a carcass, basically. And it was heavy, a big, heavy carcass. I don't know what it weighed after, because the guts weren't in it anymore. But, we got that big, thick, heavy hide. These hides are not thin. They got, lots of fat and stuff hanging on them. And just the hide alone is heavy. I mean, it's really heavy. It's probably 50 pounds just picking up the hide on one of these big hogs. So So you got that hide hanging on there because I didn't get it all the way off. So the hide's still on the carcass. And the carcass itself is, I'm sure, well over 100 pounds. So I'm realistically guessing 150 pounds as it was. Okay? All right, so you think, well, why are you telling us this story? Well, what I do a lot of times with a carcass, after I've cut all the meat off of a deer, I'll take the rest of it and lay it out there in the back field. The buzzards, the hawks, the owl, everything eats off of it, and coyotes and everything. And so sometimes I hunt over it too, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I do hunt over it sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes I do. And so anyway, we take carcasses back there and we just lay them out, and in just a few days, they're gone. The bones are picked clean, and everything's, nothing goes to waste in nature. Well, this particular time, I was going to hunt over it because at that time we were having lots of coyote problems here. I mean, there was coyotes everywhere. I think JR had 7 of them in his field after a sheep one night. 7 different coyotes. Anyway, so I was going to hunt over it and try to shoot a coyote. So I laid it out there on a late afternoon in the field back there by my shooting house. And keep in mind, this thing's heavy. I took it back there with my Ranger and just dumped it out of the back of the Ranger. Very heavy carcass. It's not something you can just pick up. So I thought, well, I'll go out there the very next morning and I'll hunt over that, And so I got in my shooting house. Now I got out there in the dark. It's completely dark. And you know me, I've already told you I'm completely night blind. Can't see my hand in front of my face. But, I'd take flashlight and I'd go out there and I get in my hunting house and I'm waiting for daylight. So it's 30 minutes and it finally becomes daylight. Well, I can barely see, and I'm looking up on the hill where this carcass should be. And I'm thinking, man, I don't see that up there. It's not up there, Now, this is the next morning after I dropped it off that prior evening, And I'm thinking, well, it's not too unusual for a carcass to get pulled a little bit. Like if there was 4 or 5 coyotes pulling on it, they could pull it off into the side weeds there and I wouldn't see it. So I'm thinking, well, it's probably just been pulled off to the edge there a little bit, So I still don't see it. So I sat there for like an hour thinking that something still might be coming through there. They'll smell it or whatever, and nothing. Didn't see nothing. So after an hour or so, I, thought, well, it's time to get up. So I'm going to go up there and just see where that carcass went because, something obviously had to pull it out of line of sight, I go up there and I promise you, God is my witness, hand on a Bible, there wasn't one tiny piece of that up there. Not a scrap, not a hair, not nothing. Now, this was heavy, 150 pounds. Now, what would haul that off? Honestly, at that point in time, nobody had ever seen a bear around here. The only things that can cross my mind that could have done it would have been another human. Somebody could have picked it up and carried it off somewhere. Now, first of all, that's totally impractical for a bunch of reasons. Number one, why would you do it? And number two, it's back in the middle of nowhere, and we never have problems with people trespassing here. And super unlikely that would have been the case, but that's the only logical explanation I got, really, because, another wild hog would eat it. There's no doubt about that. They'll eat each other. That's not an issue at all. Trust me, they do that, and they do it all the time. So so I thought, well, maybe another great big wild hog grabbed it, but they don't carry stuff away. They eat it right there. How do I know that? Because I've seen the evidence many, many, many times. Not just once. I've done this a lot of times. And there's always traces. Like if you leave a deer carcass back there. Now, deer carcass is way lighter than this carcass was. They don't even drag deer carcasses off. They'll just drag a leg over here and they'll drag another leg over there, and maybe the hide will be pulled over there, and they just drag it in different places, and it might be 40, 50 feet away, but you'll see traces everywhere of that carcass. There was not one scrap anywhere of this hog, anywhere. not a tiny scrap anywhere. And I started walking circles and walked big circles and big circles and big circles and trying to figure out where did this thing go. There was no tire tracks. So in other words, a vehicle didn't come in there and pick it up. You know, a hog wouldn't have drug it off, but could have eaten some of it. It wouldn't have ate it all. There's no chance of it could have eaten it all. And there would have been traces left, you know, so nothing ate it. You know, a bear, I don't think is a possibility, and it'd take a heck of a big bear to carry something that big off. And generally, bears don't carry stuff off. They just eat it right where it's at, just like a hog would. And a mountain lion maybe could drag it a ways, but I don't think it could drag it very far. And like I said, I walked big circles around this looking for any trace. I have no explanation for this. I have no explanation. And it definitely, black and white, 100% happened. And I don't have any way to explain it. So that's the only Bigfoot encounter I've ever had. And I do not think it was Bigfoot. I just don't know how to explain it. I have no idea how to explain that. And but it definitely did happen. And it was a very heavy carcass. Now, if it had been a little hog, I wouldn't have thought anything of it, because you could have drug, you know, even a coyote could drag off a small one. But a big one like that, even a whole pack of coyotes wouldn't have, and they don't work together like that anyway, so they would have never drug it off. And, you know, like eagles and stuff, they'll fly in and carry stuff away, but there's no way they could have carried that away. So, there you go. True story, 100% true. I would love to know what caused that, but I have no idea what it was. Okay, moving on down. Is there any last minute questions here? Bill Webb, Jerry, I had a similar incident with a dead hog. I think it was aliens. Yeah, I can't explain it. I do not think humans picked it up. It doesn't make sense, number one. And the only way it could make sense if a human picked it up was that they saw it laying there and they thought, hey, I could use this to hunt over this. And they pick it up and haul it off. But there ain't no one person going to pick it up and haul it off. Not on foot anyway. I mean, theoretically, you could have gotten it over your shoulder and carried it away, but it would have been a nasty mess to do that. And I don't think any human would do that on purpose. Picking it up and throwing it in the back of a rig, but then there were no tire tracks. So that's a true story. I just don't know how to explain how that disappeared like it did. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. So that's the closest thing I ever had to a Bigfoot encounter, and I do not think it was Bigfoot, but there you go. I will see you tomorrow with something else. Thanks for being here. 180 viewers still, so I didn't run too many people off with that crazy story. We'll see you tomorrow.